Welcome back to the Stick 'em Up podcast. Brundi, we're doing a half week update episode here, and we got quite a few things that have happened since last Friday.
Yeah. Honestly, it was we thought it was just going to be the 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 All Star game and whatnot, and we got a lot more extra stuff thrown in throughout the weekend, so it worked out perfectly here because we got a lot of big news here to go over of what's kind of happened. Um, with that, I mean, where do we want to jump into with this?
We got a
We got a
lot
lot
of
of big
things.
news, like.
Um, I think it might be easiest for us to kind of get the one thing that's less fun out of the way right at the start, because the rest of this is all uh good trades to look at, fun news for the league and the All-Star competition. So I think we'll start with the London police uh investigation findings, and they're talking
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah, if you want to kind of go over what was put out yesterday through their press conference. I watched it. I mean, again, kind of like what we discussed, a lot of it was what we kind of knew already, and it was basically just okay, now it's um kind of confirmed, but
Yeah,
if you've
so
got anything else to throw in from it.
yeah, and of course, always with this situation comes a bit of a trigger warning for a sexual assault type dealings. But basically, and so this part I'm prefacing, we've known this for about a year and a half, almost 2 years at this point. But we knew that there was the victim, the Jane Doe, uh, was fed shots after meeting a hockey player on the 2018 Canada World Juniors team. Um, they were at a bar with where all the team was hanging out, and this person uh, fed shots to them and invited them back to the hotel room, and they said yes. And so they went there and they had sex, and then they invited over, I want to say, seven um, other players on the team. I guess I don't know how many invited, but seven showed up. Three of them, I I guess they were, like, in the room but didn't participate, or they were, like, nearby, but no, they are those 3, we don't know who they are, and they're not being charged with anything. The other 4, uh, joined in and at this point had, very much non-consensual sex with, Jane Doe. We now know, basically that the one who invited them and was feeding her shots at the bar was, Michael McLeod, and that the we know at this point that the other 4 were, uh, Cal Foote, Dylan Dubé, Alex Formanton, and Carter Hart. Um, and so we were maybe expecting a little more info on their press release on Monday, but really it was just reaffirming that, uh, knowing that these guys, where they slot into the story, that was a bunch of question marks. So we do
Yeah.
know that Michael McLeod was, if you want to call it, the ringleader or the guy who got it started, whatever. So he's facing 2 charges in this case, and the other 4 are all facing one, since he kind of initiated it. But that's basically where we stand with it at the moment. Um, they are officially being tried. It sounds like they're not going to get a verdict for until 2025, 2026. It sounds like it's going to be a long process.
Yeah, we're at least a year away
Um,
at the very
Almost
minimum.
everything I've seen any official London police say anything in any context, they have reiterated time and time again that the woman in question's identity will be protected at all costs. And I
Yeah.
think that's really important. I'm very glad that they're doing that. When things like this happen to some people, it's very difficult for them to be anonymous afterwards. Who knows if Kyle Beach actually wanted to be known as the guy in the 2010 Chicago Blackhawks case. So, uh, yeah, we know for sure. We don't have to speculate if it's them anymore, but it is those five guys. And Gary Bettman made a very telling statement a couple days ago as well, where he said that um, he just kind of reiterated the rules that the league, if you're involved in a criminal investigation or something like that, your contract can be terminated by the league. He very much said can. I think
Hmm.
that was a direct message to the Flames, the Flyers, and the Devils to say your respective guys involved in this case, you guys need to cancel these contracts. Uh, do it. It really said to me like he wants them to do it, but he will make your franchise look crappy by doing it himself if you don't.
Yeah.
So it was pretty kind of like, hey guys, do this and it won't be a problem. I don't make me have to go over and cancel the contracts myself. So
Yeah. He
um
also did say though that all those teams would be given cap relief, like all those players' contracts are no longer going to count towards their
yeah,
their team cap hit
this
as
is not a
well.
buyout. This would be a contract termination
Yeah.
because of that. So,
Hmm.
and you know what? I don't I don't really care about the cap space. I think this situation is so beyond worrying about the team's cap space. Do the Flyers deserve the cap relief from Carter Hart's contract? Like, I don't think that's the main focus.
No, but I mean that is still a part of it. It's so
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
not
yeah.
really being like, oh, you're forced to, terminate it because otherwise you've got this contract. Like the contracts already don't count. Whereas if it was like, yeah, their contracts still count, then that's easily going to push the teams to terminate those contracts and cut ties
I
immediately.
see. I see.
Because as of right now, like the teams aren't in a bind with those contracts because it's not penalizing them with the trade deadline coming up or anything.
Yeah,
Whereas if it was like, yeah, like their contracts still count in their entirety, then I think that the teams would be way more inclined to uh, wrap things up quickly and get those contracts terminated right away.
yeah. And I got to imagine on top of his little comment there that he probably reached out to each GM and was like, "Hey guys, within the week,
Yeah,
wrap this up." Like,
yeah,
I'm sure they don't want any more bad press from this than they've already gotten. Not like it happened in the league or anything, but it's it's still not a good
yeah,
look on hockey as a whole, and the NHL is hockey to a lot of people. So,
yeah,
uh,
yeah. Well, yeah. Now that the press conference happened and everything is 100% like out there now and confirmed, yeah, teams should now definitely have the green light to make their decision and know that it's 100% the right one and they've got all the facts presented to them now.
yeah. But with that being said, that's pretty much all we know about that for now, and it sounds like it's all we're gonna know on that for quite a bit, unless we get something new that we're not really expecting.
Yeah, yeah. As of right now, it doesn't sound like we're getting anything else anytime soon as of right now. But again, that could very well change based on any more findings they have or anything because I think they've kind of made it clear that they're going to keep the public in the loop of what's going on in terms of major progression within kind of what's going on leading up to whenever you know uh, the trial is set to begin, whether that's in 2025, 2026 or not. We don't really know on that, but we know it's at least going to be a year from now.
At least a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but moving on from that, we got besides that, we got a lot of fun stuff with hockey as of late. Um,
Yeah.
do you have a preference of which we start with?
I mean, probably the least fun news out of everything else we have is it happened very um shortly after we finished recording our last episode last week. But the LA Kings finally did relieve Todd McLellan of his head coaching duties with the team, and Jim Hiller has been named an interim head coach for the remainder of the season. And just yesterday, they did hire former Ottawa Senators head coach, what's his name, DJ Smith. He will now be
They
joining the
hired Smith?
team as an assistant coach.
I didn't see that.
Um,
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, a pretty big shakeup for LA, who started off the season setting records, one of the hottest teams in the league. And in my opinion, still one of the best head coaches in the league. Now finds himself without a job. Like
He's gonna have no trouble finding new work around the league.
yeah. Like by the beginning of next season, he'll potentially even the end of this season. If another team decides to part ways with a coach, I think Todd McLellan will definitely be at the top of the interview list.
One thing I
My
want to ask you, just because I'm not 100% sure if it happens really ever or not. Do you ever see, like, when a head coach that is has so much pedigree hits the free agency? Do you ever see teams that their coach wasn't really in the hot seat? Do you ever see teams like fire their head coach and bring in this new guy?
no,
Like, even if
no,
they could get him, you just you only
yeah,
really see coaches get fired when things are bad enough to get fired. But
yeah. You could see a shakeup like in the off season, maybe, but during the regular season, you wouldn't see a.
and you know what? I think some teams need to think about that. If yeah, for the Sharks, for example, I think Todd McClellan would be a pretty good upgrade for them,
Yeah, but
for the
it's
head
not,
coach
also
right
not
now.
very often you see a head coach return back to a team after he was fired once already, which sucks because I would love him
Oh,
to go
has he
back to
been?
San Jose.
I actually
Yeah,
did not know he had been with the Sharks.
yeah, I would love him to go back there, but realistically, yeah, I don't see that happening. I probably don't see him landing anywhere throughout the remainder of this season, just because I think we're kind of at the point now where, unless it's a bottom team in the league, but even all those teams have relatively new head coaches. So you won't see a team, in the playoff mix or in the playoffs really make a coaching change like this now. The only reason we did with LA is just because things just kept going further and further south for them. And, uh, even you could even just see in the players that they were starting to lose faith in what was happening there. And sometimes, yeah, I mean, a coaching change is needed. Like McClellan was great there for years. I feel like he took a team and made them overachieve um, every single year. Could have had a lot more playoff success. They always just ran into the Oilers, and it was just kind of a tough uphill battle for them. They did what they could, but um, it's going to be interesting to see now what happens with the Kings throughout the remainder of the season, whether they start to trend upwards in the right direction again, or if they continue to spiral and go downhill even more and maybe even miss the playoffs.
Yeah, right now they're pretty close to the playoff line, right?
Yeah. They're still right in the mix, but again, I think my biggest takeaway, it was my immediate one when this first happened. I think the LA Kings now. I think Rob Blake's in the hot seat. I think now,
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
I think McClellan is solely fired because of the doings of Rob Blake. Like you look at all the decisions he made last offseason, I think hurt the team
The Pierre-Luc Dubois
way
trade.
more.
Like, it's hard not to talk
Awful,
about it. He gave up a
awful.
lot for a guy who's just not doing anything for him.
Overvaluing his players. Guys like Brant Clark, Jordan Spence were expected to jump in and be full time NHLers, which is why they dumped off guys like Sean Walker, who's having a career year in Philly. Uh, a player I'm really high on, Sean Dursey.
I was
They
gonna say
ship him
Sean
off to the
Durzi's
Coyotes.
great.
He probably at the level he's playing on, he'd probably be the best uh, player on the Kings right now. The way he's playing, like he is playing out of this world, and so I think you gotta you got to start to look if the Kings miss the playoffs. Like, I think
How many?
Rob Blake's got it.
Yeah.
He's got to be at least in question of whether or not they can trust him going forward.
How many coaches does each GM get? 2 to 3?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, exactly right.
so he's burned through the one that's been there for a long time. So uh we'll see. All it takes is one more dubious trade and it's gonna look bad because for every 3 good moves he's made in the past few years, uh, if you have a massive blunder like the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade, that just it's so hard to ignore that one.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, like
it
it's
I'm sure he will turn it around, but at the moment, that contract looks like a boat anchor, and you sent great pieces the other way.
yeah, exactly. It's yeah, like the amount of bad decisions he's made has gone back like over the span of a year. Like I wasn't huge on them. Uh, I don't think Korpisalo is the guy that they should have went out and got last year. I know that they did get Gavrikov as well, which was nice. But again, then you know, Korpisalo leaves for nothing. They don't like Cam Talbot's been serviceable if you want to say that, but really he didn't go out and do anything to address the
Eh,
goaltending. What did he do? He
Cam
went out and
Talbot's been pretty good for them, has he not?
to start the season, but we kind of knew with a guy like Cam Talbot, you can't expect him to play 60 plus games and then still be the guy you ride in the playoffs, which is kind of what we're seeing. Like I think
That's fair.
he'd be a good goalie to work in a tandem, but to expect him to be your starter like doesn't work. And instead of addressing that,
Yeah.
they go out and sell the farm for Dubois, who everybody kind of knew wasn't going to be the player that he was with Winnipeg on a contract year. Like we knew he was going to take a step back, and I mean, it's a lot worse than what we thought it was going to be. But
I at the start of the season, I definitely would have agreed with you on Cam Talbot, but like I'm looking at his stats here and 32 games played, a 911 save percentage. Like when
think
the
of how
league
great
average
his numbers were at the start of the season, though. Like a lot of that is still from early on in the season.
true, but the early on the season counts. Like
No,
he's
but
still
that's what
sitting
I'm
at that
saying. Like
nine
it's
911. So
that's what I'm saying though is like he can start the season off good, but you keep making
yeah,
him
he's
play so many games. Eventually,
and
it's
that's fair.
gonna.
Yeah, if especially because I don't know exactly how old he is. I'm pretty sure he's north of 35 at this point. He's
He's
definitely over
36.
30. 36, yeah. So and he's never been a guy who's played a ton of games. So that is a very fair concern, especially if he starts off hot and starts slowing down throughout the year. Um, that is a very fair worry for them to have. Um,
Like no disrespect to Cam Talbot, but realistically, can he get you to the playoffs? Sure. Is he going to be a goalie that can put the team on his back when need be to win a cup? No. Like that's what it is. He can be a guy to get you to the playoffs, but to win a cup, like no.
I
It's
think I think he has lower chances of doing it, but I wouldn't put it past him. We've seen the stretches of brilliance before, and we've seen plenty of guys come out of nowhere. And Tim Thomas was not a massive name before he went nuclear in the playoffs in 2011. Just last year, we had uh, who is it? A- Aaron Dell? No, Aiden
Aiden
Hill.
Hill. But also Aiden
Aiden.
Hill's a much younger goalie,
Hmm.
which is the biggest thing. Like, it's not very often you see these goalies with this kind of age and have never really been a true
No,
clear starter who plays 60 plus games. All of a sudden, like boom, it happens.
yeah,
And especially when I think there was numerous goalies they could have went out and uh, tried to acquire. Like they could have easily made a move, and I'm I'm not sure why they didn't. Um,
who who do you think they should have got? Do you have like one in mind that you think like would have been a good guy to
well,
try
they
and get?
they could have easily sent a 6 round pick to the Devils for Mackenzie Blackwood.
Yeah, that's true.
Mackenzie Blackwood was available, and every team knew it. And So they could have easily jumped in on that uh, to secure him. Um, well, they could have easily at the start of the season when the Flames were tossing around the idea of trading Dan Vladar. They could have easily reached out and tried to make a deal to get a guy like Vladar when the Flames were kind of weighing what do they do with Dustin Wolf and like their mixture of goalies they had going on there. Casey DeSmith was moved out of Montreal at the start of the season. They could have uh,
Yeah, that's
came in and
those
tried
are
to
all
get
really good
him.
answers. Actually, that's super fair. There was a lot of guys available that.
Now, is Casey DeSmith necessarily better than Talbot? No, but maybe bringing in someone like him and then you roll a tandem of the two, like, and we kind of know what David Riddick is now. Like he had his 1 year in Calgary where he's kind of the biggest star in the city of Calgary, and then it's kind of all just gone down for him ever since. But you go out and acquire any one of those other goalies, and then you run a tandem of you know 41 games each between Talbot and uh, the other guy. I think could have been more beneficial
Yeah,
for the Kings. And not only that,
it,
you've always got a kind of a fresher goalie going back and forth between the two, which I
yeah.
think is
I
why
Unless you have a
guys like
world beater,
Kakinen and Black would have
tandems
been
are
good.
the future of the league, really.
Yeah,
Like, unless you have a Vasilevsky, we're seeing, especially from uh, Jeremy Swayman and
Hallmark.
Linus Ullmark,
Yeah.
that it's it's so good to have a good tandem like that. Like
Not only
they
that,
never. It
either one
doesn't.
of them would be starters on half the
Bruins.
teams in the league.
Yeah, the Bruins, like, their fans are never asking each other who's starting the game in fear that it's going to be a backup. They go, "Oh, okay, this guy's playing tonight. Cool." They don't
Yeah.
actually care because their chances of winning don't go down either way.
Yeah, exactly right. So, but I think the Kings are they're gonna have a lot of things that need to be fixed and work on. Obviously, I don't see them being a seller or anything at the deadline. Like if you're making this coaching change, it's because you're still
Yeah.
going all in to make the playoffs. But if I'm the Kings, also, I'm not sending out assets and first round picks. Like if anything, I'm probably staying where the team's at come the deadline because they're in no position where they should be sending out assets to make the team better when I don't think this team is in any area to be a legit contender as of this moment unless they go on you know a 10 game win streak or they win 8 out of their next 9 or 10 games or something really um get on a hot streak and get going. I think they should just stick where they're at, and if they make it, great. If they don't,
There's always next year. Like
re
they got
recover and
quite a
yeah,
few young guys. They're looking good going into the future. Yeah, I think stay the course and next just know that next year will probably be better.
yeah, exactly.
At
Um,
the moment, they are at 56 points, only three behind the Oilers at 59. Looks like
yeah,
56, so they would be in a wild card spot. They would be in the first wild card spot in the West. So it's not like they've fallen off a cliff. They're still in the playoffs relatively securely. They've got the Blues and
yeah,
the Preds right behind them, and they should be able to beat teams like that. But we'll
realistically, they should. Yeah,
yeah, so we'll see what they do going forward.
yeah,
But yeah, the recent skid was just too much for them to not fire Todd McClellan. Like there was too many people calling for him.
yeah. And you know what? I think looking back on it in 6 8 months, they're gonna be like, "Damn, we wish we still had him." Because
Yeah, I don't
I
doubt it.
still think he's one of the better coaches in the league, and
There's a reason he's
um,
one of the top five tenured coaches in the league.
yeah, yeah,
Like he'd been
exactly. And
around
again,
since what, 2016,
no,
something
I
like
think he
that.
joined. I think he joined the Kings in 2018.
2018 for an
I
NHL
think.
coach. That's a pretty long time. Doesn't seem like it, but
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah. It's gonna be interesting to see what the Kings kind of do throughout the rest of the season. But like I said, I think Tom McClellan always kind of had this team overachieve a bit from where
yeah,
they should have been. So now it's really going to be on Jim Hiller. Now, what kind of system does he bring in? Does he kind of run somewhat of the same system, or is there going to be a lot of shakeup? And uh, you know, McClellan wasn't able to, but can he help maybe Dubois find out how to play anymore, or what do they like? Because they got to figure out how to get him going. Like they brought him
yeah,
in to
they
be.
have to get him going, and
If you're paying
he
him
has a
that
lot
much
of
money,
talent. If he's happy there, genuinely, I think he will figure it out. This would not be the first time we've seen guys get traded and not gel with the system in the first year. Sometimes they need an off season, let them cook, figure it out, and then they come out gangbusters. So
yeah.
if he does badly next year, then I'd be worried. But as it stands, I think PLD is probably going to be fine in
The
LA.
biggest thing is just helping him get his confidence going.
Yeah.
Because it's very clear that he's lacking some confidence right now, and if you can get that back in him, yeah, I think he can 100% turn it around. But if you can't help him get that confidence back, then you might run into a tough spot. So I think that's got to be his biggest area of focus, kind of coming in and working with that.
Yeah. Um the the absolutely massive news. This kind of randomly dropped right before the All-Star weekend. I was certainly not expecting it. But the NHL is going back to the Olympics. They announced that Gary Bettman himself announced that NHL players will be participating or be allowed to participate in the 2026 and 2023 Olympics. We think this
Yep.
is a great stage for the best on best, he said. No shit. We've all known that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know what? To hear him say it is still good. Um, when was the last time they even went to the Olympics? Did they go in?
Um,
What's it?
they didn't go in 2022. They didn't go in 2018. So it would have been 2014.
Yeah. Yeah, it was 2014. And oh man, we were
So to put into perspective, the last time Canada, or I guess NHL players went to the Olympics, one of Canada's best defensemen was Marc-Edouard Vlasic. So that,
yeah. McDavid had not even been drafted, let alone played a game.
yeah,
Like, it's absurd how long we've had to wait. And thank God now is when we're bringing it back, because if he waited until after 2026, I don't think we get to see McDavid and Crosby ever play
yeah, no,
together in the Olympics. And that would be blasphemy. That would be a travesty of the sport to not be able to see that.
yeah.
Um, he might have already fucked over Stamkos enough that he might not go. He's gotten better with age in the past few years. I think he's still going to be able to make this 2026 team, but it will be
It's
tough.
gonna be tough. It's gonna
It'll
be
be
tough.
close. It'll be close. I think he's going to get in, and I don't even care if this is the reason. I just want him to get in. But I think there's a very good chance that John Cooper is the head coach of that Canada team.
There is a very good chance. Yeah,
And it would be such a shame for Stamkos to have had the leg injury in 2014 and not go, and then feet out, the rug out from under his feet. They don't go 1 year, and then they were gonna go in 2022, but I wonder if they were actually going to, or if Bettman just said that knowing that it would get canceled because of COVID concerns.
yeah, yeah.
So
That I'm not 100% sure on.
I almost think he said, yeah, you can go in bad faith to because he knew it wouldn't end up happening.
Mhm.
Um,
One thing that is interesting with this, and this definitely hurts Canada quite a bit. Nothing is confirmed, but there is potential that we will not get Kale McCarr on Team Canada for this, and that is due to the ongoing investigation, obviously, of the 2018 World Juniors team, and all of those players on that team have been suspended indefinitely in terms of international um, by the IIHF. So
Oh, everyone on the team.
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
and it sounds like there is a there is like an appeal process that can be done, but all players are currently suspended by Hockey Canada. So so they can't participate in any Hockey Canada sanctioned programs. So depending on again on it may even just be when the trial happens with it or whatnot. Um,
Yeah.
Again, if what the appeal process is, but so nothing's confirmed, but there is potential that we wouldn't see Kale
And
McCarr on
and that would
Canada.
hurt Team Canada, and that would just be a shame because you want to see all the best players be there. Assuming
Yeah,
they're all not guilty of something. He's obviously not one of the five players who is directly being charged with anything, but
yeah.
um, yeah, that's almost strange at this current point with what we know, the whole team is still suspended. I wonder if that'll be lifted soon or maybe coming up
I
towards it.
imagine if
They'll lift
anything,
it
it
for
wouldn't be
everyone
until
else.
the end. I imagine it
Yeah.
wouldn't be until the end of the investigation.
Yeah. It would be a shame for Kale McCarr. Like I'm not a massive Kale McCarr fan or anything, but uh he should be there. Like if he
He is
was
making some headlines right now, though.
like if he wasn't involved in anything, then
He
I
did
don't
make
think
a
it's
really
fair.
odd quote when talking about the situation recently.
Okay.
I'm not going to read the whole thing, but this is kind of just the part that everybody's kind of looking to, and just thought it was. And again, take it for what it's worth. I think most people are just uh, are like it's just worded very weirdly the way he says it. Like it's not a typical response to something kind of
It's
like
not
this.
easy to talk to reporters.
Yeah. So
Like
basically,
it's
what he said
yeah.
was he said, "I wasn't there. It was a very fortunate bounce to not be a part of something like that." And the part everybody's kind of
Hmm.
focusing to is saying it's a very fortunate bounce, which
Yeah.
I don't really like how and the way people are taking it is why are you saying like you're fortunate that you weren't like a
Yeah.
part of this? Like
Yeah, he makes it
it's
sound
not
like he
something like
missed
you're
he missed the
lucky.
text, he missed the invite or
Yeah.
something, but I
So
I
again, yeah,
wonder
take it for
I wonder
what
if
it's
that's,
worth, but
almost in reference to the other 3 guys who, like, were, like, present but not active in it, you know? Like, because
yeah.
I have no idea. They might get charged with something eventually as well if they figure out who those are, if they don't already know who it is. Um,
I think they know who. Well, that I think they obviously would have to know who they are at this point. But again,
yeah,
I think it's they weren't like again, it's what necessarily can they need
they're
to
not the
find
ones
something they
having
could
charges
actually
against them. Yeah.
yeah, and
They'd
they would
have to
have to
find
find
something to charge
something.
him with, and also the accuser would have to want to go after them. Like
Yeah.
if they were just there and she doesn't care about that, then I mean that's that. Um, but yeah, hopefully they get that squared up, and anybody who isn't involved is allowed to go to international things as soon as possible.
Yeah, yeah, and then it'll be interesting to see the whole process of
Because I had not heard
um
about that. That's a big
it
development.
it only dropped I think last night. I think someone brought it to light. Because I think it's one of those things that kind of just got forgotten about over time, and then someone's like,
Yeah.
"No, like yeah,
Well,
they're
yeah,
still
getting
suspended." So,
getting suspended from international play. I mean, first of all, international play wasn't happening as far as we knew until a couple days ago. And also, who on that team would even go to the Olympics? Like Kale McCarr is one of the only ones.
the only one. Like the only other one you could have said was maybe Carter Hart, and that's just because Canada's goaltending situation is probably the worst we've ever seen it. Um,
First in a long
but
time.
obviously, I don't think Carter Hart will ever even be playing hockey at any professional level again. So that's not even part of it. So
In the
with Kale
NHL.
McCarr, it'll be interesting um,
They got
to
plenty of
see.
leaks in Russia.
Yeah, and anywhere in Europe, honestly, we've seen.
Russia really is the Uh, get ready to learn Chinese, buddy, of the NHL.
Yeah,
Guys
yeah,
going over to the
they'll
KHL.
yeah. Other news regarding international play. Um, there will be no All Star game next year in 2025. Instead, there will be a Four Nations Face Off tournament that will be taking place in Boston and Montreal. And that'll take place between four countries, that being Canada, the United States, Finland, and Sweden. So they will do it sounds like the format for it will be a round robin. So every team plays each other. And then it'll end up being the top two teams will play in a final winner take all game for that. So something a little bit different. I think, again,
It,
I don't know if
it's a
that's, I
fun
mean,
idea. I don't love that it's Canada, US, Finland, Sweden, and that's it. I
yeah,
think Canada and the US are big enough that that could be the team. I think that's fine. But I think it should be, Sweden, German, Czechia, etc. versus Sweden, Switzerland, Yugoslavia or whatever. Slovakia, I named a country that's no longer real. But
yeah,
it Drysaitl's not going to play in this.
yeah.
Kopitar, if he's still at that level, is not going to play in this. Like, it feels weird that if you're not from one of these four countries,
Well,
regardless of
Pasternak,
your
not even
skill, Pasternak won't be there
like
in
some of the biggest
Boston.
players. Yeah,
So it, I really do think the Finland and Sweden teams should be given it should be Canada and US and then Europe East and Europe West or something like that.
yeah.
Find a way to evenly spread out the talent between the two teams and then make those the four teams.
Yeah, it's just very odd that they decide to throw this in because, like, they kind of revamped the All Star weekend this year, and I think it did quite well as opposed to previous years. And then you've already got
Yeah.
the Olympics coming up in 2026 now, and then it sounds like there's the talks are really heating up to kind of revitalize the World Cup of hockey again, which would consist of a lot more countries like we saw before. So it feels kind of weird that they're pushing this in when it doesn't really need to be right now. Like, it's a cool concept, yeah, but do we need it? Not really,
This
considering
would
what
have
we're
been
gonna get.
fantastic in 2018, like around then when
Yeah.
we were getting no international play at that
Yeah,
level.
exactly. But then to be
Uh,
like, we're
so it's
you're
weird
getting it now,
now.
but we're gonna throw more in, it's a bit of an odd
Best on
decision,
best
but
hockey, like I will take it. It's fun, but
yeah.
it's a bit strange, especially with the timing. But we'll take what we can get for best on best hockey.
Yeah. And then speaking of the All-Star weekend, nothing, major coming from it. Like, I think it was quite well done as opposed to what we were used to seeing.
Before we fully move off of the Winter Olympics, I do just want to throw in that the 2026 Winter Olympics will be played on NHL sized ice.
Oh,
They
yes,
also announced.
that's right.
I just wanted to throw that in before we moved on. I wonder, like, was that a big argument? Was that an issue? Was that Bettman just kind of nuts on the table, being like, "I'm the big man and use my ice"? Or uh, I'm interested to know who cared on what side, or if they were just all like, "Yeah, sure,"
Yeah,
because they have had the Olympic sized ice for quite some time, quite a few decades at this
mhm.
point. Um, so to change it to the NHL sized ice, I wonder if they cared too much, or
Yeah.
if it was just easier for the players.
Yeah. I'm honestly, actually, I'm not too sure what the process was behind that or kind of who spearhead that. My thing is probably it's like, you know, I'm assuming they probably would have like some NHL players probably were a part of this process and were like, we'd prefer this. And when Bettman, talked to the IOC, was like, you know what? Yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna let NHL players come back, but they would like to have it be done on NHL sized ice
Yeah.
instead.
Because that's the majority of the players that will be playing there will be used to the NHL sized ice. So I'm not
Yeah.
exactly sure how many people would be like, no, we like the Olympic sized ice. I
Yeah.
think a big part of it was also kind of trying to avoid some of the shenanigans that went on in the dead puck era with goalies playing it behind the net. So I
Yeah.
don't know if they use the trapezoid rule in the Olympics. I think that would eliminate the need for the Olympic sized ice.
Yeah.
So that might have had a hand in it as well. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
we can go back to the All Star weekend as you were saying.
Yeah. Like, nothing super major with it. Team Matthews obviously ended up winning the little mini tournament, beating Team McDavid in the finals, and then obviously in Toronto there, Austin Matthews did end up winning the All Star MVP. McDavid won the skills competition. No one's really surprised by that. You could tell he was kind of embarrassed at the end when he won because I can't remember who was interviewing him, but they mentioned that they're like, you were part of creating this, and then you could tell he's kind of
Yeah,
getting embarrassed. But it was like, you know what? That's fair. Like they made it very well known that he was a big part of this new process. And you know what? To be fair, regardless of the way it was done, McDavid was gonna win.
he should probably win. It would make the most sense. He is the most skilled. We know this.
Yeah. But I really like the new concept of it. I think it actually, um, I think it made it more entertaining to watch and actually seeing players partake in the like the actual skills that they put into the game, not just doing random little fun things. Actually kept it
It
hockey
felt
focused.
it felt closer to an all-star game than watching NHL players play IRL Mario Party. Like they were
Exactly.
they had so much mini game energy to the past few all-star competitions with
Yeah.
like the saucer pass thing where you're trying to land on the targets. Like it's kind of cool, but it's like it's it was a little too out there. Maybe they're just too early with it, but right now they just yeah, simpler is better, and I think a lot of it went really well.
Yeah.
I think
One
they did
thing.
a massive good thing by bringing in the celebrity coaches. I think that brought a
Yeah.
lot of character to each team. All of them had pretty good charisma in one way or another, and
Yeah.
for maybe the first time that I've seen it, but all four of them were like actually like celebrities. Like, I
Yeah.
remember when they had the All-Star competition in Vegas and they announced the breakaway competition judges. I didn't know a single one of them, and there was like
Yeah.
12 judges that they rotated out. And like it was like this is the drummer from some band you've never heard of, and it's like what? Like there was so many random people, so to see
There's
actual
also,
celebrities was pretty cool.
well, not only that, the fact that, I mean, probably mostly because it was in Toronto, it's in Canada, but it
Yes,
was all Canadian celebrities.
yes.
But like still, I think even for Americans, I think they probably recognized all four of them.
Yeah, maybe not Tate
So
McRae. I don't know. We definitely get a lot of Tate McRae playing on the radio up here. Um
that's
I
just
don't
because
know I
she's
don't know
from
how
the
much
area. So
yeah, I don't know how much they play her in the States, but like uh I mean they all know Justin Bieber. They all know Will Arnett. Michael Bublé's
everybody
a
knows
pretty big
Michael
name.
Bublé.
And
Everybody
if they
knows Michael
didn't, they
Bublé.
do now.
Yeah, yeah.
He had a
Um,
lot of charisma out there. That was fun.
one change I would make to it though, and it's a very minor one, and it's easily something that could be done. More goalies. Like,
Yeah.
it was all focused around the players. We only saw the goalies for a little bit, and that was during the second stage of the All Star. After the first four players were eliminated, we then got the eight goalies to come out, but we only got to see a minute of them in one on ones against a player, and then that was it. So I would like to see something where we see some again, even if they did something of going back to I can't remember what year it was, but seeing the goalies take part in like some shooting and whatnot,
Yeah.
like because playing the puck is starting to become a huge part of being a goalie in the league. So giving the goalies the ability to showcase that and
Yeah,
have
have
some
them
fun with
stand
that,
in
I
their
think would
crease
be
and shoot on a net at the other end and have like the small hole in the middle 5 points and then at the edges 2 bigger ones worth
which
2
is what they
points or
used to
something.
do it, and that
Yeah.
was awesome.
Yeah, and
That was a lot of
that was
fun.
fun. And
Um,
the save streak one, just all kinds of things like that. I think they do the goalies a little dirtier this year. Um
yeah.
yeah, I completely agree.
Um, and even for the save streak, you could realistically you could have Justin Bieber take part in that because he can play hockey quite well. He even took part in warmups with Team Matthews, or even maybe you take, if there's a couple players who aren't part of the skills competition who want to be a part, be like, hey, do you want to be a part of doing the save streak with the goalies? And then the guys doing the skills competition aren't a part of this, and this is so you guys get to have some fun throughout the day and be part of this for the goalies, which
Yeah.
I think they definitely could do.
Yeah,
Um,
you know how many highlight reels he'd be on if like Justin Bieber like somehow got a puck passed and went bar down on a goalie? Like
yeah,
it,
exactly
you're
right.
just begging for like one of those like moments that goes viral.
Yeah. The only other thing I'll say, I know you may not be a fan of this,
No, go for
but
it.
my biggest two takeaways, from what I've seen fans saying online, is Matthew Barzal's stock in terms of fans has gone through the roof over the weekend, and then Nikita Kucherov's has really dropped low.
Yeah,
Um,
people are not a fan of his.
not only in the eyes of the fans, but even some higher ups. An unnamed individual who we won't know, but they talked to Elliot Friedman, and Elliot Friedman
Yeah,
thought there was enough merit behind it to talk about it, saying that his All Star effort could potentially cost him the
yeah,
Hart Trophy at the end of the season.
yeah. Whoever he was talking to said that in his that guy's opinion, it should take away from his Hart Trophy potential, which
Yeah,
is
yeah,
insane. Like, if you think he's a douchebag for it, that's fine. Like, I get that. But if you think it's embarrassing because they get paid millions of dollars to play hockey, like I get all that. But to say that the All-Star game, anything that goes on there should have merit towards the major awards is crazy to me.
yeah. I completely
And
agree with that, and
and
I don't even think
luckily,
it's a
all the
douche
people who
thing by
dislike
him.
Kucherov, I've seen almost every hockey fan saying the same thing that uh I don't like what he did. I don't like Kucherov in general, but this is wrong. This is like it like sounds corrupt. Like it sounds like a Maple Leafs insider like trying to sway the vote or something. Like it was very weird thing to say. We don't know who said it, but
Yeah.
I'm
And I don't
glad
even
most
think he
people
went
seem
out
to
to do it
disagree.
purposely. I think it was more so it's easier to be like, "Oh, I lost because I didn't try," rather than being like, "I went out there and gave it 110% and I came up short," type of thing.
Exactly. So yeah, I think it's a bit of that. I think also uh Kucherov loves being booed, particularly in Toronto. He said this on multiple occasions. Um, he got a bit lackadaisical with it, specifically in the stick handling competition. So he was going, let's call
And
it,
the passing.
yeah. The main
Those
one
2
was
were
the stick
really
handling,
bad.
but when I watched that, he was going 70-80% speed. Like, he wasn't giving it by any means, but he wasn't at a crawl. And
Mhm.
then the crowd started booing, and he heard that, and he slowed down to about 60. He you can very actively see when he hears the boos, he slows down. He snowplows for half a second and slows down even more to play it up. And that that was kind of fun to me. Like, I know I'm going to sound like a homer, but like, he was already not doing much to kind of play a bit of a villain. Like, Kucherov not caring about the All-Star competition is a more fun villain to have in the league than headshot artist Nick Cousin. You know?
Mhm.
Like at least it can be fun to hate him this way. He's not just dangerous. Um
Yeah.
I do
Yeah,
want
I
to
mean,
bring up
there's the two
one
sides you can
thing.
look to it, like the Kucherov taking the booze and having it drop him. Whereas, again, a guy like Barzell, just because he's on, like, it's not Barzell specifically, but it's just because he's an Islanders player. He's not very well liked in Toronto, and by the end of it, he might have been getting some of the most cheers because
He was
he was
giving him.
probably he was the dark horse to win. He had the lowest odds to win the skills competition, and he was right up there with
Did he come in second
McDavid.
at the end?
He ended up finishing in third, and that was just through the obstacle course. It was doing the little saucer passes into the mini net. He hit probably about 30 posts on those
Oh,
mini nets. He just couldn't get that through. But the time when he got there, if he rattled through that, he would have ended up finishing in second. And that's but like nobody was beating McDavid in that.
like you said, Kucherov was very lackadaisical with his performance in the passing and the stick handling. But one thing I do just want to bring up, just because I'm seeing a lot of people act like Kucherov was like doing snow angels on the ice. But these are the times for the stick handling competition. So McDavid obviously in first, 25.7 seconds. Barzell 26.9, Nylander 27.2, 27.7. Uh, everyone is under 30, just barely, but everyone there is under 30, except for Kucherov and David Pasternak. Pasternak was at 38.4 seconds, and Kucherov was at 44.1.
But
Kucherov
Pasternak's was a lot longer because he missed the net at the end.
Kucherov also lost the puck at the very beginning and had to go chase it to the side. And like he was obviously slower. He was obviously not caring. I'm not going to say he was given his best by any means, but he only was behind him by 6 seconds, which is goofy, but he wasn't going as slow as I feel like some people are saying. It almost seems like people parroting things without actually have seeing the clip. Like he was
Mhm.
clearly going slower, but like he wasn't, outright. I'm surprised there's as much of a stink about it as there is, to be honest. Because when I saw it, I was like, he's he's being goofy with it for sure. But I did not take it as he doesn't give a fuck to the umpteenth degree that everyone else saw.
No,
Obviously that could be
Pasternak
me
had a
being a homer.
couple
That could be
blunders.
me
Like
a homer.
he was doing quite well. And then the biggest one is he came in at the end and
Yeah,
did the
I
toe
did see
drag
that.
and missed the net, so he had to go and find the puck wherever it went, and then come back and put it in.
For such an insane goal scorer, Pasternak's missed a couple of really easy open nets in his career,
Yeah,
huh? He's got a
yeah,
couple
yeah,
of bad looking clips.
yeah.
And I mean, Gretzky had it, lost it. So nobody's
But
immune to the big blunders.
yeah, but overall, I really like kind of the new revamped way they did the All Star Weekend. I think if they, you know, whenever the next one they do, because obviously there won't be in 2025 now. There won't be one in 2026 because of the Olympics. So it's now 3 years until we get the next one. But again, if they do it similar on the lines of what we got this weekend, I think they'll start getting more and more people back and into giving a shit about the All Star Weekend.
Not to mention, just having more time. We get one every year. Maybe after 3 years, people are like, "Holy crap, the All Star Weekend's back! Let's go!" Like people, just absence making the heart fonder might get people invested in that alone. I could definitely see it.
Yeah, exactly right.
One other thing, we were saying a couple of different things that we'd like to see changes made. I think to avoid uh, sis- uh, situations like Kucherov's, um, don't suspend players for not going. Like you should want players to want to be there. So don't
Mhm.
you shouldn't have to make a punishment if they don't go. Like I get it, you might lose out on some, but you know, y- you know what? Even if low don't even give out a $1 million reward for the guy who wins, lower that to 500K and then give every single guy that shows up 25, 50K and match that with a charity of their choice or something. Like just for showing up and participating, give them something. and you can easily tie that with so many charities. And I think a lot of guys would still go.
I don't think you need to pay players to go or anything, but I do agree. It's like if you don't want to
Yeah.
be there, you shouldn't be suspended. Like, um, I think that is kind of a silly rule.
Yeah.
Um, but again, I also see the part of it is like this is a, like again, this is all kind of more directed towards, you know, younger generations and whatnot, where they kind of want to see the best play. And like this wasn't a big issue back in the day of the All-Star weekend. Like you would always kind of see the best players go there and everybody wanting to be there. But it's starting to be now that when teams are getting that, um, you know, all the players that aren't going, they get that kind of weekend off of they get to go on vacation somewhere and whatnot and hang out with their teammates. And I think that's kind of the biggest reason why you're now seeing players not want to go because they'd rather be off in, Cancun with their buddies and
Yeah.
partying up, having a good time rather than going to cold Toronto for a weekend. Like, and I
Yeah.
think that's a big part of it. I bet if it was in, you know, LA for it, I bet Kucherov probably wouldn't care. I think
Yeah.
he would have been fine. But the
I mean,
fact that it's going up to cold
yeah.
Toronto for the weekend,
I think it was a perfect storm. I think he loves getting booed in Toronto, plays into it. Going up to Toronto instead of, where has it been recently? Vegas, Tampa, Florida. Like it's been in these destination places. And also, I believe this is the first year he's ever gone where he hasn't had another Lightning player. So he didn't
yeah.
exactly have, he didn't have Vasilevsky to hang out with the whole time cuz uh I know a lot of the foreign players do a lot, but like
But he had
Sergachev,
other
Vasi, and
Russian
Kucherov hang out
players.
all the time.
He had other
Like,
Russian players there he could have hung out with. Like that's the same situation a lot of players were in
yeah,
that went there.
yeah. There's a lot at play, and I do definitely think that location is uh
I think
is
that
a
was
big part
the
of it.
biggest. Yeah.
Um,
I think that was a
was
big part of it.
Ovechkin the first player to kind of publicly like I don't want to do. I feel like that was
I
the
think
first
so,
time I
yeah.
heard it. He was like, I don't want to go, and that's when they made the rule that you get suspended if you don't go, right?
Yeah.
And that's yeah,
Yeah.
it's too bad it came to that because for a long time it was everyone wants to go, everyone wants to be an all-star, and it's too bad
Back
we're
when
at
it
that point.
kind of meant something a little bit more than what
Yeah.
it does today.
Um, I only have one more thing on the All-Star weekend, and that's a very quick. Quinn Hughes and Kale McCarr are just like since they entered the league, everyone talks about them interchangeably. Who's better, who does what better. You know, they just seem to be talked about almost in a Crosby Ovechkin esque comparison. So it was
Mhm.
really cool to see uh, Quinn Hughes posted his time 14.088 seconds for the fastest skater. And after that, Kale McCarr went and posted a 14.089.
Yeah, they were right there with each other.
Kale McCarr was behind him by 0.001 second.
Yeah.
And that was it for it to be those two and that close is just
Exactly,
wild.
right?
Like
Yeah.
that's the drama we're looking for here. That was fun to watch.
Yeah, it added a little extra fun to that kind of little debate between the two of it all.
Especially when both are so good at skating, very
Yeah.
highly talked about with their skating ability, whether it's their edge work or pure speed. So it's funny to see
Yeah.
how close they really are in overall speed.
Yeah.
Um,
Would do. Oh, I guess the really only the. I mean, we'll quickly throw it in there. It doesn't really mean much. But the Penguins signed for
Yikes.
Jesse Puljujarvi, um, to a 2-year
Wow.
contract, that continues throughout the rest of this season and next, and it carries a cap hit of 800,000. Um, you know, is it going to be much for the Penguins? I don't really know. We like
I
Puljujarvi
mean,
really hasn't been able to find his game
it's hard
in
not
the
to look at it
NHL.
as a great signing just because he was drafted what, third overall,
Fourth.
fourth overall. So I mean, 800K, like, it's probably a two-way contract, honestly. Like, it's
I think it probably is.
it's so low risk, but like, if he just is a different player and turns it on, like, I mean, there you go. Like, it's
Realistically, what I see it being is
his last chance with the league.
is like, not only that, but it's like, a fourth liner role. Like if you can
Yeah,
throw in some depth scoring, great, but really it's go out there and be a big body and play a good defensive game, which I think could really help the Penguins. But it's not like he's going to be coming in and expecting to be a workhorse offensively and help drive plays. It's
yeah,
play a smart game, play a responsible one, and maybe you can make a nice little career for yourself here,
yeah. Just
being a
be a
role player
dependable
for us.
guy for 7 minutes a night, and if you pick up a thing or two from Crosby in practice, then you can move up. But
Yeah.
because if anyone could turn him into a star that we thought he might be for a long time, it would be Sidney Crosby and the boys. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love signings like this. Like it's just there's so little risk to it, but like, and even if it's not likely, if you hit on that, turns around and is just that guy all of a sudden, you look like a genius.
Well, not only that, even if he can, you know, become a solid middle six player or something, and
Yeah,
if the Penguins are out
if
of
he
it
puts up
come
30 points a year and is a plus, like you're
well, and
golden.
if the Penguins are outside of a playoff spot come next year, if you're trading Puljujärvi at 800,000 to a team, like you could potentially get something good back for him. Because if a team's acquiring a middle six guy who can maybe slot in on the power player on their second line for 800,000, like you
Yeah.
could also potentially get quite a bit back for him. So it's the lowest risk possible, and there's very good upside to it potentially.
Yeah.
It really just
Uh,
depends on what Puljujärvi is able to do now, with the Penguins moving forward.
yeah. I guess the only other thing really to talk about is the Sean Monahan trade, right?
Yep. Yeah, kind of broke just before the start of the weekend. Um, I don't know how to feel about this trade, if I'm being honest. For Winnipeg side, like for Montreal,
Yeah.
it's a home run.
I think
So
this was the Jets' response to the Lindholm trade a little bit.
yeah,
I think the Jets are really wanting to, everyone's talking about the Canucks, but we are serious this year and they want to go all the way. And I think Sean Monahan helps them out. It's a lot to
yeah,
give up. They gave so to the Jets went Sean Monahan, and that's it. And then the Habs got back the Winnipeg Jets 2024 first round pick and a conditional third round pick. I believe it's a fourth round pick that turns into a third
it's
if
a
they make the
it's a
playoffs.
it's
Or
a
no,
2027 third round pick. Um, if Winnipeg wins the cup this year, Montreal gets it. If Winnipeg doesn't win the cup, then it's just the 2024 first.
I see. So
It's but again, I don't even hate it for Winnipeg because when you look at it, like they've got I'm just pulling up a list here. Like they got so many up and coming prospects that they're at a point where they can afford to part ways with a first round pick. And
that's
if
kind of the
especially if
scary
you're
thing
banking
about
on it,
that
if
team.
you're banking on it being uh, a later first round pick to get a guy like Monahan who can help them in that center position that they do need help. Like they've made it work where they're at, but adding a guy in like Monahan, I think could definitely help them out. Like just to look at some of their recent drafts, like really, if it's a first round pick, they almost kind of would have had to go the route of a defenseman, I would think, because you've got Cole Perfetti now who's just come up and he's now a part of the team. Um, and then over the last 3 years, Chaj,
Chaz
Lucius,
Lucius,
Rutger
legendary name.
McGrody, Brad Lambert, and then just last year Colby Barlow. So you've still got four young, good forward prospects coming up into the mix. So can you get away
They
with a year without a first round pick? Absolutely.
and
And it fills a hole that they needed. So
they're doing so well right now to have guys of that caliber coming up through your system. Like
mhm.
it's obviously way too early, and the league, there's so much parity. It's hard to be good for a long time, but this looks like the beginning of a dynasty. Like this looks like a team that could be a force for a long time. You got a guy like Connor Hellebuck in net. You got all these young, incredible forwards while the team's still doing so well up front. And
Yeah.
like their top six is incredible, especially after that uh Pierre-Luc Dubois trade.
Yeah. Their depth got better as
And
well
then
with
Josh
I
Morris
follow.
Josh Morrissey has been incredible, absolute rock on the blue line. Like they
Yeah.
they have all the pieces of a cup winning team.
Yeah.
They just have to
There's a
execute at this
very
point.
realistic possibility we could see Winnipeg and Vancouver in the Western Final this year,
Yeah.
which would be incredible. But one thing worth noting is the fact that Montreal essentially got 2 first round picks out of Sean Monahan because they got Calgary's 2025 first round pick when they just had to take on Monahan's contract for 1 year. And then they flip him and they get another first. So really, you helped Monahan revitalize his career. You got 2 first round picks out of it. And there's
And
also
you
a lot of speculation
and you got the
that
games out of him too. Like games played is
also that.
valuable. Like he played well for you. Like there is not a facet here where they lost. They
Well, and there's
just
also
phenomenal maneuvers.
speculation that because I'm assuming Monahan, this is just a pure rental for the Jets, just because when you look at what they've already got in place with their core and then their young players coming up, I just don't think Monahan fits in long term with them.
Yeah.
So there's lots of speculation that Monahan, because he made it very well known, he loved it in Montreal and would like to stay there. There's very realistic possibility we could see a Antoine Vermette situation when he was traded from the Coyotes to the Blackhawks for a first round pick. He went on, won a cup with them. Right as soon as free agency started, he went and signed back with the Coyotes. And we could very well see that with Monahan. We could see
Yeah.
him go back to Montreal. So Montreal ends up with Sean Monahan in the end, and they got 2 first round picks out of it, potentially a third if Winnipeg goes all the way.
Yeah. And I mean, they
So
got Calgary's 2025 first, did you say?
yeah. So they got 2 firsts this
Well,
year and 2 firsts
well,
next year.
Calgary's not exactly looking great. That could be a good pick.
That could end up being a very good pick for them. Yeah.
And you know what? If the team's not doing good, and that's like I'm assuming it's probably top 10 protected, that just means you get an unprotected pick the next year.
I don't think there's any conditions on that Calgary pick.
Really? The majority of
Yeah.
teams, like very few first rounders leave that aren't at least top 5 protected or top 10. Like even in the Tanner Jeannot trade with
Oh,
Tampa, like we
so
we
it's
even
not
protected ours top 10 because you just have to nowadays.
it's uh they they get the lower one of because Calgary's got Florida's 2025 first, which was
Right.
part of the Matthew Tkachuk trade. So so the way it works is if Calgary's pick is not in the top 10, then Montreal will get Calgary's pick. And if Florida's pick is not in the top 10 and is the better pick, then yeah.
Then Montreal gets that one. Okay. I do now that we're talking it out, I do remember when it came out, everyone was like, "How the hell does this work?" But yeah, it's like
Yeah.
both of them are both. It's they get one of the picks, top 10 protected, but I think they get the better pick as long as it's
Yeah.
not top 10.
Yeah, if they're both not top 10, then they receive the better of the pick. So say Calgary gets the 11th and Florida's like 20th or something. They get Calgary's 11th.
Accurate.
But if Calgary finishes with a top 10 pick, then they would get Florida's.
Yeah.
So either way, yeah, they're still getting another first round pick next year. So
Yeah,
I mean, it's great work by Montreal. Who
yeah, they absolutely knocked it out of the park with that one. And geez, if he comes back to Montreal, like that's a passionate fan base, and they will love that man. I think they already do, but if he wins them, if he wins them 2 picks and
Yeah.
comes back for more, like that's very similar to the Elias Lindholm, like I was saying before. Like if he came back to Calgary after this playoff run with Vancouver, he will be beloved by the franchise even more than he already is.
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine
Yeah,
if
it's
both those guys
interesting.
just go back to their teams afterwards?
I'm not saying like, yeah, that there's nothing that that prevents them from going down that road. So it's Lindholm. I don't think so, just because I
Much less likely. He'll be a way bigger cap hit
and
than Sean
yeah,
Monahan.
Calgary's just Calgary. First of all, wasn't willing to pay him that. Second of all, I don't think they can, and it doesn't make sense for them to.
Yeah.
But yeah, right now, I think it's a good deal for both teams. You could make the argument it's a little bit of an overpay for Winnipeg, but when you break down the pieces that they already have and coming up,
I think
they
it's
can get
more
away
than an
without a
overpay
first
right
round
now.
pick this year. Yeah, especially when they're one of the top teams in the league. Like it's not you stay patient and be like, oh, look towards the future. It's like when you're the one of the best teams in the league, you have to go all in. Like,
Yeah, and the trade is essentially a first round pick. It's a first round pick for Sean Monahan. We don't even talk about the third round pick because it's not involved unless they win the cup. And if you win the cup, you won the trade hands down. It doesn't matter.
yeah,
So we don't even need to talk
exactly.
about that third rounder until it turns into, Kirill Kaprizov in 2030.
Yeah, exactly right. So, um, great deal for both teams. Montreal continuing to work through this rebuild. I think they're handling it very well, and then Winnipeg
I
having
think
their
they'd be
sights
further
set on the cup.
along if they weren't just hammered with injuries, man. God, the
Yeah,
last 3 years in a row, like so many of their guys are out. When they were playing in the COVID shortened year, they had ECHL players playing because they had so many NHL and AHL injuries and COVID illnesses that they literally had ECHL guys playing on the Montreal Canadiens. Like,
yeah. It was a tough time for them.
yeah,
That's for sure.
it's been a tough go, and it's looking up. It's looking up now.
Yeah, yeah. They're doing it right there. So, but I think that kind of wraps up everything we had for this episode, as
Yeah,
far as I know.
I mean, I do have the scoring leaders and stuff, but it's literally been like 2 NHL games played since then. I don't think any of this changed, so we'll just do that on the Friday episode.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks to everybody for tuning in and joining us for this special midweek episode of the Stick 'em Up podcast. As always, you can find us over on Instagram or Twitter/X. There was a lot of All-Star talk over the weekend. We were very active over on Twitter there. So if you want, feel free to join in there and say hi, join in on the conversations we have over there. But with that, thanks for listening, and we will catch you guys on Friday.